Good afternoon, everyone. We appreciate you taking the time to join us this afternoon in our video reporting into our art appreciation teacher. Good afternoon, Mr. Dane. Now, before we dig deeper into our topic, I will ask you a simple question. Have you ever wondered about when and where or what kind of art does early humans crafted in early civilization? Well, in this lesson, we are going to tackle art in early civilization. Our objectives for today is to discuss how art was used by prehistoric people to depict everyday lives, identify the central themes of prehistoric art, differentiate the techniques used during the three kingdoms of early Egypt, and the last one is to explain how art is linked with religion and early civilization. First, the Stone Age. The Stone Age is a term used to describe a period of history in which early humans relied on stones to create tools necessary for their survival. This prehistoric era was characterized by the widespread use of stones to fashion tools with various functions such as cutting, pounding, and crushing. Stone Age humans during their existence hunted large mammals like woolly mammoths, giant bison, and deer by utilizing stone tools. They became more adept at extracting meat and vital nutrients from animals and plants compared to their ancestors. This period is often associated with an image of men dressed in animal skins gathered around a fire in a cave. Consequently, people of this time relied on the animal hides they acquired through hunting as their clothes. Furthermore, they discovered how to manipulate animal hide, transforming it into leather and sewing it together using bone needles to produce warm garments, while early humans did not possess the sophisticated cognitive abilities necessary for creating written records and accounts to tell their story. They relied on various artifacts like cave paintings and sculptures as a form of storytelling. These artistic representations serve as the means to understand the lives and experiences of these prehistoric individuals. By examining prehistoric art, it is essential to consider within the context of three distinct periods of Stone Age culture, in which we will tackle it later on. Now, let us tackle the different periods of the Stone Age. There are three periods to be exact. Because the Stone Age lasted such a long time, historians break it down into three slightly smaller periods. First is the Paleolithic period, second is the Mesolithic period, and the last one is Neolithic period. Now, Paleolithic period or Old Stone Age, around 2.5 million years ago, early hominids, close relatives of humans, started using simple stone tools. They slowly developed into modern humans. This theory can be correlated with Charles Darwin's theory in his book of evolution. Darwin simply plows ahead and argues that we humans are like other animals and hence are the produce of evolution through selection. It is notorious that man is constructed on the same general type or model with other mammals. Now, the Paleolithic age in Europe proceed with the Mesolithic age. Although the date of the transition varies geographically by several thousand years, during the Paleolithic age, hominids grouped together in small societies, such as bands and subsisted by gathering plants, fishing and hunting, or scavenging wild animals. The Paleolithic age is characterized by the use of stone tools. Although at the time, humans also used wood and bone tools. Other organic commodities were adapted for use as tools, including leather and vegetable fibers. However, due to rapid decomposition, these have not survived to any great degree. That would be all in the Paleolithic age. Next is the Mesolithic period, or also referred to as the Middle Stone Age. Around 10,000 BC, people during this time became hunter-gatherers. Britain started to become an island. Before this time, it was joined with Europe. In other words, it refers to the final period of the hunter-gatherer cultures in Europe and Middle East. Between the end of the last glacial maximum and the Neolithic Revolution. Because the Mesolithic is characterized by a suite of material culture, its timing varies depending upon location. For example, in Northern Europe, the Mesolithic began about 8000 BCE after the end of the Pleistocene epoch. About 2,600,000 to 11,700 years ago and lasted until about 2700 BCE. Elsewhere, the dates of the Mesolithic are somewhat different. The Mesolithic hunter achieved a greater efficiency than did the Paleolithic and was able to exploit a wider range of animals and vegetable sources. Emigrant Neolithic farmers probably absorbed many indigenous Mesolithic hunters and fishers, and some Neolithic communities seem to have been composed entirely of Mesolithic peoples who adopted Neolithic equipment. These are sometimes called or referred as the Secondary Neolithic. We are now in the last period of Stone Age, which is the Neolithic period or sometimes called as the final division of Stone Age. Around 4500 and 2000 BC, people began farming, building villages, and making ornaments like pottery. An example of pottery in the Neolithic period is the monochrome. It saw the Neolithic Revolution a wide-ranging set of developments that appear to have arisen independently in several parts of the world. This Neolithic package included the introduction of farming, domestication of animals, and change from hunter-gathering lifestyle to one settlements. Now that we have already discussed the three periods of the Stone Age, let us proceed to the prehistoric art. The Stone Age has witnessed how humans were able to lead more stable lives and eventually came up with permanent shelters and tools for survival. To complement this stability and sense of permanence, early humans also turned the creation of paintings and sculptures that depict human and animals in their natural habitats. It would seem that there were attempts to record the kind of lives they lead within that period of time, in which case we will tackle later on. Paleolithic art is a product of climate change. As the climate got colder, part of the early humans' instinct is to look for shelters that would provide them with warmth. Caves became protective heavens for the early humans, and these caves paved the way for the birth of their very first attempt to create art. One cave painting can be traced back to Lascaux, France, and its discovery came as a surprise. Now, let me tell you a story about the discovery of this painting. Two boys chased after their dog into a hole. Well, their ball got stuck in. When they followed the dog, they were astonished to discover a cave with beautiful paintings. The cave paintings would eventually be called the Hole of Balls. The Hole of Balls. The figures depicted in the walls were done with a certain level of crispness and life that there were initial hesitation of the work's authenticity. However, evidence later on pointed out that the cave paintings were created during the Paleolithic period. It is also important to take note that the paintings evoke naturalism. Naturalism in art means creating work as close to reality as possible. In other words, the art is realistic and accurate to real life. Although most people would think that early humans were primitive, some of their art techniques were considered advanced for their time. As a safe haven, religious ritual could have possibly transferred within the confines of the caves. Some believe that there was a linkage between what was drawn and what could happen in real life. Perhaps the most famous theory was put forth by a priest named Henry Breuil. Breuil spent considerable time in many of the caves. He believes that the images played a role in hunting magic. The theory suggests that the prehistoric people who used the cave may have believed that a way to overpower their prey involved creating images of it during rituals designed to ensure a successful hunt. Now, the next prehistoric art that we are going to tackle next is the Venus of Willendorf. This figure is a highlighted obstructed woman from highlighted body parts associated with fertility. Figure 2 shows that the woman has oversized breasts, enlarged hips, and round abdomen. Every little is known about the Venus origin, method of creation, or cultural significance. However, it is one of the numerous Venus figurines surviving from Paleolithic Europe. The representation may show the importance of taking care of these body parts for procreation and consequently the survival of species. But furthermore, one researchers hypothesized that it was made by a woman, and that has been seen as evidence of obesity or adiposity is actually the foreshortening effect of self-inspection. It has been suggested that she is a fertility figure, a good luck totem, a mother goddess symbol, or an aphrodisiac made by men for the appreciation of women. Neolithic art was developed especially when life for the early humans has become more stable. They have learned to cultivate the land, domesticated animals. By 4000 BCE, there were several monumental and architectural structures erected. One of them is the Stonehenge located in southern England. The purpose of this fascinating edifice remains a mystery up to this day in age. One of major mysteries of Stonehenge was how it was built. The ditch and bank itself would have been dug with an antler peaks about 6 feet deep and piled up to make a bank about 6 feet high. At the time, creating the bright white fresh chalk would have constructed vividly against the surrounding grassland. One theory suggests that the Stonehenge was used as a Neolithic burial site and a monument to the dead, for at least 500 years during the first two phases of construction form, from 3000 BC until the monuments were erected in 2500 BC. Stonehenge is perhaps the world's most awe-inspiring ancient stone circles, older than the Great Pyramids in the Roman Empire. Speaking of pyramids, the next topic that we're going to tackle all about is the Egyptian art, in which it will be reported or be discussed by two of my groupmates.
Today, I will discuss about the Egyptian art. The fertile ribbon starts from the banks of the Nile River, which flows north to Africa and ventures into the Mediterranean. It is in this very ribbon where early Egyptians recognized the integral role of the Nile River to their daily lives. It is this indispensability and utility that eventually lead to the belief that the Nile is the worshipped as a god. With this came the notion that art was something that can be ascribed and associated with religion. This now starts here from the banks of Nile River, which flows sa north to Africa padong na sa Mediterranean. So kani nga ribbon mao ni siya ang una nga Egyptian nga ilang gi-recognize ang the integral role sa Nile River through their daily lives. It is this indispensability and utility that eventually led to the belief that the Nile is to be worshipped as a god. So, na sila believe sa ilahang Nile River, which is ang pag-ampo nila or pagsimba isip usa ka Ginoo. So there are the Egyptian history divided into three main periods. First is the Old Kingdom, second is the Middle Kingdom, and the third is the New Kingdom. The Old Kingdom refers to a period in ancient Egyptian history that lasted from approximately 2700 to 1055 BC. It also known as the Age of the Pyramids due to the constructions of the famous pyramids at Giza during this time. The second is the Middle Kingdom. So the Middle Kingdom, which lasted from approximately 2055 to 1650 BC, is often regarded as a period of peace, stability, and cultural flourishing in ancient Egyptian history. It followed the first intermediate period as a time of political fragmentation and instability. Last is the New Kingdom, which lasted from approximately 1550 to 1070 BC. Egypt prospered trade, gained more land through conquest, and reached the height of its power. During the Old Kingdom, it was evident that religion was bound to the afterlife. Concrete manifestation of this would have to be the erection of tombs, but the tombs were not just for keeping the dead bodies of important people, particularly the pharaohs. They also serve as a shelter from the next journey, which is the afterlife. The human figures seen in the tombs were represented in such a way that the profile of the head was evident, while the pelvis, legs, and upper torso were prominent, and the eyes are in a frontal view. Inside the tombs, the walls were also decorated and carved in very low relief and incest detail. One of the cosmetic palettes found in Egypt was called the Narmer palette. It was a palette that utilized and applied the dark colors around the King Narmer's eyes. The palette was also a symbol that commemorates the unification of Upper and Lower Egypt. At the back of the palette, King Narmer can be seen wearing the crown of Upper Egypt, looking victorious over a slain enemy. To his right is a falcon, the god Horus perched on papyrus stalks, which is a symbol of Lower Egypt. The top is sculptured with ball-shaped heads with human features. That is a representation of Hathor. This god symbolizes love and joy. The front palette, on the other hand, shows lion-like figures with intertwined necks, bound in leashes, and tamed by Ptolemy. So, usa sa mga cosmetic palettes nga nakitaan sa Egypt and was called Narmer palette. It was a palette nga migamit or nagbutang og itom nga mga color palibot sa mata ni Haring Narmer. So, ang palette ay nagsimbolo nga naghandom o paghiusa sa Upper and Lower Egypt. So, at the back of the palette, Haring Narmer can be seen wearing the crown of Upper Egypt. Nagtanaw nga madaugon batok sa usa ka magipatay nga kaaway. So, the top of sculpture with the ball-shaped heads og porma sa toro nga adunay mga dagway sa tawo nga usa ka nagrepresentasyon sa Hathor. So, this god symbolizes love and joy. At the front of the palette, on the other hand, shows lion nga naighugot sa mga leashes o giaghop sa duha ka lalaki. Palette is the one of the artifacts that emphasizes the king's supreme and absolute authority. In the most cases, the king is not just an authority figure but can be depicted and revered as a deity. So, ang number palettes ay usa sa mga artifacts nga gipasugda sa supreme and absolute authority. Then, bisan sa kadaghang mga kaso, ang hari dili lamang usa ka otoridad, but ilhasang gihulagway o gitahod sama usa ka views. Pyramids in Giza served a tomb since their main purpose was to provide a resting place for the pharaohs. These pyramids are massive and sized and were constructed using roughly more than 2 million limestone blocks. The stones used for the pyramids were quarried from a nearby plateau. Egyptians also ensured that the insides of the pyramids would celebrate the life of their pharaoh by lavishly decorating them. However, it posed a problem since thieves usually plundered the valuable objects used to decorate the inside of the pyramids. Ang mga pyramid sa Giza ay nagsilbing mga lubnganan tungod kay ang ilang purpose ani is paghatag o paghulayan sa mga pharaohs. So, these pyramids massives o ihang gidakon is gihimo gamit ang 2 million limestone. Paniguro usab nila ang mga Egyptohanon nga sulod sa mga pyramid masaulog sa kinabuhi. And bisan pa mahimo usa ka problema tungod kay naay mga kawatan nga mangawat sa valuable object nga gigamit to decorate inside of the pyramids.
One of the key features of the Middle Kingdom is a shift in the political hierarchy. So, as an ancient Egyptian rulers, pharaohs were both the head of the state and the religious leaders of their people. The word pharaoh means great house. It is a reference to the palace where the pharaoh resides, while early Egyptian rulers were called kings. There is a powerful group of landlords that threaten the authority and the rule of the pharaoh. In order for art to re-emerge and flourish, Egypt needed to have a more stable situation. This happened during the rule of King Mentuhotep when Egypt finally got back on track. King Mentuhotep reunified the country by defeating his rivals and ushered in the period known as the Middle Kingdom in 1938 to 1630 BCE. There are some of the styles that were freely drawn during this period. On the left side, we can see a portrait sculpture, and on the right side, it is a fresco painting. So, portrait sculpture from the Middle Kingdom often depicted the subject with more realistic facial features, capturing a sense of individuality and emotion. These sculptures were typically made from various materials such as limestone, granite, or wood. In fresco paintings, it often adorned the walls of tombs, illustrating the journey to the afterlife or scenes from the deceased person's life. The artwork aimed to provide the sustenance and pleasure in the afterlife while preserving the memory and identity of the deceased. Frescoes during the Middle Kingdom exhibited a significant level of skill and detail, showcasing the period's artistic styles, techniques, and the society's values and beliefs. To solve the problem of the thieves that plundered the tombs, Egyptians made a rock-cut tombs by carving out a living rock. So, instead of building structures above ground, Egyptians began creating tombs by excavating into the natural rock formations. This process involved carving out burial chambers, corridors, and passages directly from the rock. By creating these tombs within the rock itself, They aimed to conceal the entrances and make it more difficult for thieves to locate and assess the valuable treasures buried within. Egypt fell into the hands of foreign invaders called Hyksos. The Hyksos introduced innovations in warfare, such as horse-drawn chariots and composite bows, which gave them a military advantage over the Egyptians of that time. They ruled Egypt for several generations and had significant cultural and political influence, bringing about changes in Egyptian society, technology, and military strategy. The new kingdom had references from both of the preceding kingdoms, the Old Kingdom and the Middle Kingdom. Mortuary temples worshipped of a deceased king and depository for food and object to the dead monarch. It carved out living rocks, served not only sanctuary for death but also for a living. Egypt witnessed the Amarna revolution led by King Akhenaton and Queen Nefertiti. King Akhenaton moved the capital to Tel el Amarna. Amenhotep changed his name to Akhenaton, which came from Aton, who is the son of God. Queen Nefertiti, whose name means a beautiful woman has come. Most artists created artworks that are natural and seemingly real, and highlighting the features of their subjects. There is emphasizes to lifelike features of the face like an elongate jaw and thick lidded eyes. And the bust of Queen Nefertiti has a long and sensuous neck. She was the queen of Egypt and wife of King Akhenaton during the 14th century BC. So, naturalism was not only used to depict the pharaoh but was also used for members of the royal family. And monotheistic is a belief that there is only one god. One of the greatest discoveries from the Egypt civilization was the tomb of Tutankhamen. He became king at a very young age and died at the age of 18 years old. Howard Carter discovered his tomb in 1922. They were astonished to find gold artworks and the coffin was made of solid gold. It was covered in the linen and the gold mask to cover his face. Some of the artworks discovered from this period would give a modern society of us people that is part of this society, and a glimpse of what was life like during that period. And one of the early civilizations where art flourished was the Egyptian civilization. Throughout the three kingdoms, all the way to the Amarna Revolution, art has been directly used, particularly in religious and spiritual activities. And through these unearthed and discovered artworks, the modern world could have a better understanding of the past and how it can affect the present. So that ends our lesson about the art and early civilization.